In this presentation, we'll see about swaps. A swap is an agreement between two parties to exchange sequences of cash flows for a set period of time. Swaps of private agreement between two parties. At least one of these series of cash flows is determined by a random variable such as interest rate, foreign exchange rate, and equity price. We'll see about the definition of a swap. A swap is an agreement to exchange a series of cash flows at specified future date points according to certain specified rules. The first swap contracts were created in the early 1980s. Swaps are traded in OTC markets. Swaps now occupy an important position in the OTC derivatives market. The calculations of cash flows depends upon the future values of an interest rate, an exchange rate, or other market variables. Swaps involve exchange of one set of financial obligations with the another. Example, fixed rate of interest with floating rate of interest, one currency obligation to the another, a floating price of a commodity to fixed price, and the like. Characteristics of swap. The main characteristics of swaps are, it is an exchange of interest payments on some notional amount. No exchange of principal amount is involved in swaps. Converts the interest rate on an asset or a liability from fixed to floating, floating to fixed, and floating to floating. It allows the user to align risks characteristics of an assets and liabilities. A swap transaction is a custom tailored bilateral agreement. Now we'll see about the features of swaps. The counterparties involved in swaps, they swap involving the exchange of series of periodic payment between at least two parties. Example, a firm having a loan of 10 crore payable at 10% fixed coupon rate for 5 years wants to exchange for a floating interest rate with that party who is also interested to exchange its liability from floating period to fixed period. Then facilitators. Swap agreements are arranged through an intermediary, which is usually a large international financial institutions or banks having network of its operations in major countries. These intermediaries play a significant role in bringing closer the various parties for such deals. Facilitator will note down the requirement of the parties and try to match and fulfill these with the other parties. Swapations. Swapations are combinations of features of two derivative instruments, that is option and swap. Option interest rate swaps are referred as swaptions. Buyer of the swaption has a right to enter into an interest rate swap agreement by some specified date in the future. Swapation will specify whether the buyer of the swapation will be a fixed rate receiver or a fixed rate payer. Buyer exercises the option, then the writer of the option will become the counterparty. Equity swap. Equity swap involves the exchange of interest payment linked to the change in the stock index. For example, an equity swap agreement may allow a company to swap a fixed interest rate of 6% in the exchange for the rate of appreciation on a particular index, say BSE or NSE index. These are the features of swaps. Now we'll see about the uses of swaps. Hedging. Hedging activities reduce risks. A borrower may enter into an interest rate swap to remove the risk that a benchmark such as LIBOR goes higher, which would require it to pay more. A purchaser of a credit default swap is buying insurance, which is the primary method for reducing the risks. Speculation. An investor may take on the risk of paying a variable rate of interest if it believes that rates will stay low and it will make a profit from the decision. A buyer of a credit default swap is betting that a company will fail. Other uses of swaps are reducing funding cost. Company looking to raise funds issues fixed rate 6 months papers and enters into a swap to receive floating rate. Assets or liability management. Changing payment streams from fixed to variable and vice versa. Then speculative positions. Entering into a swap to take a position gaining from either drop or in the rise in the interest rates. Now we'll see about the advantages of swaps. Increases predictability of funding, places government squarely in charge, guided by policies and planned with knowledge of available resources. Identifies priorities, improves financing base, reduces transaction costs and applies interventions equitably, avoiding geographical disparities. The disadvantages of swaps are early termination of swap before maturity may incur a breakage cost, lack of liquidity, and it is subject to default risks. Now we'll see about the types of swaps. There are mainly 4 types of swap: interest rate swap, currency swap, commodity swap and equity swap. Now we'll see about interest rate swap. One party pays a fixed rate and the other pays a floating rate with both sets of payments in the same currency. Commodity swaps. One party pays a fixed rate and the other pays a rate equal to the change in price of a commodity. Equity swaps. One party pays a fixed rate and the other pays a rate equal to the return on an equity index. Currency swap. Each party makes interest payments to the other in different currencies. To detailedly explain these 4 types of swaps with an example, popular swaps are interest rate swap, one leg floats with market interest rates. Currency swap, one leg in one currency and the other leg in the another. Equity swap, one leg floats with market equity returns. Commodity swap, one leg floats with market commodity prices. Most common swaps are fixed for floating interest rate swap. Payments are based on hypothetical quantities called notionals. The fixed rate is called the swap coupon. Usually only the interest differential needs to be exchanged. Usually one of the parties is a swap dealer, also called swap bank, that is a large bank. Thank you all.